action of the month. You guys love these so much that I added two for this particular session. So the first one is a tip from our media buyers. So obviously we are in heavy planning for Q3 and Q4 right now. After this, I have planning calls with a few of our clients to make sure we're getting ahead of the game. And so one of the first steps that we take is, of course, analyzing what worked last year, what didn't work last year. We will do a whole Smart Marketer Show episode on this. This was a quick tip that is different from what we usually do before our Q3 and Q4 sales that any of you guys could easily implement. So this is from Attila. He's one of our senior media buyers. He's someone I've known over 10 years. He was in our programs back in the day. He was one of the first media buyers that we hired, one of the best media buyers on the planet. And he says, just an idea when it comes to pre-Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Lead gen campaigns. This worked well for a blank client for a Father's Day sale, and I pitched it to another client. I had to blank out. So this isn't just for Black Friday. You could use this for any sale that you're going to run. And it's really simple. So instead of leading with a VIP promotion, which is usually what we would do in this scenario, we're leading with a high value giveaway campaign for 2 weeks, but we're keeping it really simple. So the gift is either a bundle of products or it is something that your audience would want that still relates to their particular market so that these leads are qualified. So a good example of this would be our client Antler Rings. They sell really cool rings for, let's call it more of the Western market, like people that love to hunt, they love to fish. So a lot of times for their giveaways, instead of giving away their products, because that can get a little stale, we will give away something like a trip to a rodeo or a really cool antler chandelier that they don't sell, but it's something that their audience would get really excited about. So we're not giving away a laptop, we're not giving away something generic, we're either giving away our products or something that very much qualifies the audience. Now, we are still using a conversion campaign here. So we're not optimizing for leads inside of Meta because on that thank you page, we have something to sell. So that's what's important here because you can still judge this campaign off of a metric like ROAS that's more performance versus a lot of times when you're building up a lead list for a sale, which can work, you kind of just set a random lead cost metric and that's your benchmark. So another tweak to this is that we have an offering on that page. That offering could be your Father's Day sale that's like an early opening, early access. That offering could be just another offer. It could be a catalog of your products, or it could be your hero product. The key is that we're optimizing for conversions and we have something to buy on that thank you page. Then at the end, you're going to draw a winner. This could be a live draw on Instagram Live or on a Zoom call to make it really exciting right before that promotion kicks off. So for the Father's Day sale, it was right before Father's Day. For Black Friday, probably like that Tuesday or Wednesday before Black Friday. And then the people that don't win, right, there is still that promotion of whatever your sale offering is. So again, this is very different from sign up for our VIP list, be the first to learn about this sale. There is a time and place for that, but I think consumers are getting, they're wise, right? They kind of know what that means. It's like, oh, I'm giving you your email so you can tell me to buy stuff from you, right? This has more value up front, but you are actually able to scale these campaigns off of a ROAS metric, and it's a great way to get some fresh leads in before the sale. What we also see is that these people, if you have the right gift for the giveaway, tend to have a high lifetime value because they were qualified by the thing in which you were giving away. So for Smart Marketer, a lot of time we'll give away a bundle of our courses or a business makeover, which would be consulting with Ezra and I. Like only you guys would be interested in that stuff. Like my mom doesn't want that. My grandmother doesn't want that. My husband doesn't want that. you people, business people, marketing people, my people, you want that. So again, the gift is very, very important here. And it's so smart to run this right before a sale so that you have that conversion opportunity way closer to the lead generation than you normally would with something like this. So shout out to Attila for noticing this is something we're recommending for all of our clients right before their big Q3 and Q4 sales, something everybody should try out. And then the second action of the month is an ad account strategy. This is back to Pretty Farm Girl that I told you about earlier. Pretty Farm Girl is an amazing company. They have a farm in Florida. They are a family-run business. They have just a team of genuine, amazing humans, which is a big reason that this brand works so well. But they're also great marketers, and we love working with them. So I wanted to just detail this insane growth that they've had and what that looked like high level from our meta ad account strategy and how you guys can implement the same thing. Definitely check them out when you guys have time. Part of why this works too, this brand sells many different products, all made in their facility, everything sourced from their farm. They were one of the first ones to really hop on this tallow trend. A lot of ladies might have heard of this, where, I mean, even at my local farm store here at checkout, there's beef tallow. So this is also just a very hot market right now, which has absolutely helped in their growth. But we said this helps you scale smarter, not harder. And it's pretty simple. So the first part of this is really focusing on, okay, how do we scale winning ads faster? So when they came on as a client, there was so much going on that there wasn't a true understanding of what was working and why. And we'll dive into that. And this allowed us to uncover a lot of missed opportunities, which is really interesting in a different perspective that I have now running an agency than I did just as a media buyer that was looking at, maybe a few accounts at a time. It's crazy how many businesses start working with us and they worked with amazing agencies before, or they have great media buyers on their team, but you get so close to what you do. I'm sure a lot of you feel like this sometimes. I feel like this with Smart Marketer all the time. I'm like, I'm so close to this that sometimes there are big opportunities in front of me that I just don't see because I'm so close to it. And, in the first 60 days that we're working with someone, we're always able to pull, just missed opportunities that are obvious in the account that just weren't seen by whoever was working on this before. And then, of course, creating this repeatable testing engine, which is what you guys are the most interested in. We know that as Meta invests deeper into AI, as we saw, not only are they starting to, want you to create or help you to create copy and creative that's to specific personas, right? This is becoming a game of how many creatives can we give this engine, finding a sweet spot, right? Too many, and it's going to tank your ROAS because you're having to spend too much money on testing, but too little, and you really just start to see results dip. So what does that testing engine look like? It looks a little bit different for all of our clients, but we've actually been able to SOP this so that we can give it to you guys. Again, it's a little bit different for each client, but in a broad sense, it's like, here is how we are going about this testing process. So we give the machine what it needs, but we don't give it too much, right? You don't want 50% of your budget to be dedicated to testing, right? That's too much. The overall blended ROAS of your account would be awful. So what does that look like? And what is this ad account structure? So this is a picture from Mentor Table. This is a mastermind that we have that we absolutely love. If you're a business that's 7 figures or more, definitely check out smartmarketer.com/summer. I think that's the URL. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a place on that page to apply for our mastermind. We have a VIP day in October before Smart Marketer Live just for our mastermind, but just a little pitch for that. So just to first dive into this before we get into the specifics. So the smartest way to organize what you're doing is, of course, to always know what's working. So many people actually don't know what's working in their account. You would be surprised. Most people don't know what to test next, and they definitely don't know where to put more money, right? Most businesses and marketers on this call, if you could spend more money tomorrow, right, and know that you are going to make more money, that you're going to scale your business, you would. So why aren't you? Well, it's because you don't know where to put more money, because you probably don't know what to test. And it goes back to what the hell is even working in my particular business. And a lot of this has to do not only with tracking, of course, but it's also just, are you actually paying attention to this, right? Do you stop testing once you find a winner? We dive into so many accounts and people are like, well, I found a winner, right? I found one ad that was a winner. So I kind of quit, right? I kept trying to scale that one ad. Or they're wasting money mixing new ideas with proven ones, which is really interesting and something that we see a lot. So this is going to help give every ad a clear purpose. When you guys are doing something, when you're launching something, it doesn't matter the platform that you're launching on. You should know what the purpose of a particular ad is. And the purpose isn't just make my business more money, right? The purpose needs to be specific, right? What is the goal here? Is this here to fight creative fatigue? Is this here to acquire more new customers into your brand? Is this here more for a retention play? We have to have a clear purpose so that we can actually measure and spot winners. That is what is going to lead you to confident spending. So as I said, this is something that we do for our clients every single day. This helped boost Pretty Farm Girl's revenue by 60%. We've been able to double the amount of ad spend for this particular account in just 60 days. And this is all thanks to this wonderful human, Dominique. So Dominique used to work at Meta. And you guys know, and this is no knock to anyone that's worked at Meta, there are brilliant people that work for Meta. But sometimes you engage with marketing specialists or people from Meta and you're like, wow, I know more about this platform than they do because I have actual experience. So when we interviewed Dominique, I was a little bit hesitant, but I could immediately see that she knew exactly what she was doing. And she thought of it more from the brand side than the Meta side. Dominique's one of our senior media buyers. And when we asked her, like, what were the keys to success for Pretty Farm Girl, here is what she said in this order, and this is what we follow for each client. So the first is the funnel fix. So something Pretty Farm Girl was doing that's really common now with Meta's new campaign setups is people don't realize that a lot of their top of funnel campaigns, their CBO Advantage Plus campaigns, are targeting way more existing customers. They're essentially retargeting people way more than they are actually acquiring new customers. So the first thing that we did was simple. We split new customers and existing customers with proper exclusions so that we actually knew we were growing the business. And when we wanted to acquire new customers, we knew we were doing that. And when we wanted to retarget and boost lifetime value of customers, we knew that we were doing that. And it's surprising, even in our mastermind, we were talking about, okay, here's how to go in and check for this. And a lot of people are actually not doing this, right? Because exclusions used to really hurt the performance of your campaigns. Now, this is a huge risk. So the first thing we did, fix the funnel in terms of the campaign types. Are we splitting this into new and existing? The second, of course, was a creative overhaul. You guys can go to Facebook ad library at any time. You can see the creatives that we are using. What is great about Pretty Farm Girl is that the owner, she is very good on camera. So they've always had good creatives, but they very much relied on her. So really looking at fresh formats that I'm going to show you in a second, just different bold ideas. It's something Dominique is so good at, especially in this market. So it's like, okay, let's fix the account structure setup. Second, let's fix the creatives. Third, message testing. As I mentioned earlier, most of you guys have probably noticed in Meta that they are now wanting to let their AI help you with your personas. And especially for a brand like Pretty Farm Girl, I would call this a product-centric brand. And what that means is that this product could be used by almost every human on earth, mostly women, but almost every human on earth could use these different skincare products. Now, that can be a benefit to the scalability of the brand, but that can also be a huge disservice because you're not niching down to these certain pockets in order to scale up the brand. So that was the third thing that we did. What are the different pockets of women based off of their age, based off of their interests, based off of their skin type, based off of what they do in their day-to-day, right? Who are those pockets and how can we come up with specific messages to reach them? Then we started focusing on budget. So this was something Pretty Farm Girl wasn't as strong with when they came on. They were making most of their decisions inside of Facebook, basing this off of ROAS versus looking at the bigger picture, like John and I discussed in episode 3, I believe, of the Smart Marketer Show. So we helped them understand what a customer was really worth to them every single month as time passed. And we were able to set some more aggressive goals so that we could scale this business a lot more quickly. It's very important. Every time I start even consulting guys with a brand and they're trying to grow with Meta or they're trying to fix their paid media, we actually start with their numbers. What is a customer worth to you every single day for the first year of their existence in your ecosystem? How can we be more aggressive in setting these goals so that we can afford to spend more to acquire a customer so that we can scale the business? Really, really important. And then, of course, focusing on the landing page, which I'll show you here in a little bit. Most of you know that we usually recommend when you're first starting with paid ads, driving directly to a product page. We call it the butter chicken. Ezra named it that. And that will work to a certain extent, especially depending on the strength of the page, what you're selling. But eventually you start to scale out of the part of the market that is so desperate for whatever solution that product provides them. And we need more advanced offers. And that was definitely the case for Pretty Farm Girl. So we had really scaled past the ability of just using the butter chicken. So we started going to their homepage. Not everyone's homepage is strong, but theirs is. And then things like evergreen discount collection pages, we call them. So this is a good example of this. This page has no navigation at the top in terms of you can't click to their blog, you can't click over, you're not there. The normal navigation is not at the top. The home, the about, the contact, all of that is anchoring down the page. So we are able to really create focus here. A lot of people are sending to pages where there's so much going on in their navigation that people just get lost in their site. So removing that navigation was an immediate 22% lift. So this is something we've done for years, but it still works. Now, the rest of this page is what we call an evergreen discount category page. So we're giving 10% off all of the products, which is just a great incentive, especially if you're a new customer. And as you scroll down, it's almost a shopping experience like you would have in a store, right? Where you're walking down an aisle. First, you see some great UGC, but then you're seeing all of their hero products that you can simply add to cart. This really helps with AOV, right? This helps us combat the high cost of traffic that we looked at earlier. And you also see this make it a bundle, right? There's a $120 offer on here. Now that has a low conversion rate, but when someone buys it, wow, that really boosts our ROAS for the day. This is a page style we have used for years, and almost every client that we have tested this for, it has worked. And again, the key is there's no navigation at the top, so you control the experience. There is a discount. It doesn't have to be 10% off, but that's pretty standard. There's a bit of UGC on the page if possible, or just something that's showing real people using the product. Hero products are here. You could even list more if you wanted. And by the way, this works for info products. We use this for Smart Marketer too. Again, this works because people can add multiple products to the page. And then you have your bundles, which are really there to boost AOV. Then, of course, we have testimonials, the ingredients, and then a bunch of the reviews. And then our VIP offer is at the very bottom of the page. So switching from just product pages that promoted one of their products or one of their kits to pages like this, to home pages, also really helped grow this business in a significant way. So again, here are the steps that Dominique used, and we're going to go into a bit more detail. So start by looking at what's working. This is obvious, but before you launch anything new, dig into your past data. Guys, there is so much more there than you think. I promise you. There are old ads that used to work that you forgot about that you could revive today without building anything new. Look for things that got great results but didn't get more budget, right? You guys know that a lot of us are making decisions in just the first few days, which is okay. We have to do that, especially if we're on a limited budget. But sometimes you'll come back into the ad account if you do an analysis like this, and you might see that you generated more purchases than it appeared in that window in which you were making the decision. So always go back every single month and look at, okay, which ads actually did get, maybe it was only a few sales, but there just wasn't a lot of budget, or maybe I turned it off, right? Maybe this performed well in one campaign for a sale or something specific I was doing, but I never used it again for whatever reason, right? There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. Obviously, you're looking for things that brought in real customers, not just clicks, but we are looking for ads that had a very high click-through rate, because there might be something about that creative or that hook in the copy that really worked. And if massaged a little bit better to pitch the product, could be something completely new that you could bring to life. We're also checking performance by age, gender, region, placement, all of those options as you customize your columns, because something might have actually worked to a certain segment, but in the grand scheme of things, it didn't look like it worked. But if you go in, you do this research, you might find, oh, this ad, this particular hook, this creative, as an entire audience, it didn't convert. But when I'm looking at women over 60, it actually worked really well. Wow, we should launch a campaign with more creative and copy like this just to that particular segment. Again, I know that this seems like one on 101, but I cannot tell you how much of this is not happening. And I know as marketers, we're always moving forward. We're always building the new. We're always trying to figure out what's coming. And that's beautiful. But there's so much to learn from what's happened. Even things that you think you have analyzed well in the past, there is always a time to go back and see what's actually working, even if it's a small data set. It's all telling you something. You guys know this. I always say there is never a wasted dollar on advertising. Even if you didn't generate sales, even if you didn't hit your success metric, you bought data, you learned something. Make the most out of that data. A good example of this, we had a client who sold a stretching course. Again, every human could buy and use a stretching course. I sure needed it after the 150 miles that were walked. And something that we did to scale this was really just understanding that the segment of buyers over 50 recovering from hip surgery, oh my goodness, there is a pocket of buyers here that we never would have understood if we didn't go back and analyze, if we didn't read the comments of the ads, right? If we weren't actually paying attention to why certain segments of this market were buying this particular product. Now we can commit full resources to building a full campaign specifically to that avatar. So that's step one. Step two, of course, build this testing engine, which looks differently for everyone, but I'm going to give you the baseline. So of course, we're always doing creative testing. That's a given. That is the most important thing other than offer creation that you can be doing in 2025. New videos, new hooks, new copy, angles. I don't have to tell you this. We're always testing first to audience that we know work though, even cold audiences. We don't want to throw too many variables into the mix. Now, of course, we're obviously testing new targeting options. So using top performing creatives and ads that we know that have worked in the past, but showing them to new audiences to see if we can find new pockets of people to sell stuff. And then we always have our scaling campaigns. So these campaigns are fed winning combinations at all times. What we're finding in the creative testing campaigns, what we're finding in the targeting testing campaigns, the winners of those campaigns, that is what we're feeding into the scale campaigns, which is where most of our budget lies. This is a really simple framework that all of you can use. We kind of have 3 different phases here. So the first would be the discovery phase. So we're spending about $15 to $20 a day on each variation. When possible, we're testing 10 to 15 different angles simultaneously. I know that feels like a lot. It's what it takes. We're running for at least 3 days each, sometimes longer if we have the budget to do so. Of course, we're tracking ROAS, initial conversion metrics, but as I said earlier, we're also looking at CPC, CTR, these secondary metrics that might tell us that, ooh, this topic really resonates with the audience, even if it doesn't generate the sale. Wow, we could make a pre-sale article about that topic. That is data that is so important. Hopefully we identify 2 to 3 winners. So that is our goal, like a 20 to 30% hit rate on what we're testing in this discovery phase. Now this moves to more of the optimization phase. So how do we take the winners? How do we take our findings from this discovery phase? And how do we do more with it in the optimization phase? Now, of course, this is spending a bit more money, right? We're not at ultimate scale here, but we're spending more to really see if these have legs. And some smart, simple things that we do here, guys, is not creating completely different ads, right? Those are all tested in the discovery phase. This is about optimization. So this is about taking a static image that worked and turning it into a GIF, or taking a GIF and turning it into more of a fleshed out video, or taking a few static images and turning it into a carousel. I was just having this conversation with Rissy, our awesome media buyer for Smart Marketer. Like, dude, this carousel is amazing. This should become a video. This static image works. This should become a GIF. So we're starting to play with some really easy optimizations that's just taking what's working and putting it into different formats so we can get more of that real estate on Meta. We're also doing some simple things that make a big difference. So let's say a static image is working. We will put a badge on that, maybe that product won an award. Maybe there's a money back guarantee. Maybe there is something seasonal that we could put in terms of a badge or a trust signal. Maybe we could overlay a little bit of copy about a hook that we see that's working onto a creative that is also working. So again, small little edits for our editors that make a really, really big difference. Obviously testing different headline copy variations here too, but we're not creating completely new creative concepts, right? These are not new scripts. There's no, new shooting being done, a footage. This is really just taking what we have and making some slight edits. Then we get to the scaling phase. This is, of course, where most of the money is spent. And we're focusing the budget and trying to isolate as much as possible the top 2 to 3 performers from this optimization phase. Of course, we're creating lookalikes. We're looking for other interests. We're looking for other campaign types we could put these winners into to try to get more juice. We're also thinking bigger picture. How could we build a landing page based off of whatever message is working? How can we build a full follow-up sequence from an email standpoint and or a paid traffic retargeting standpoint that really helps to optimize whatever we see is working here? So again, it changes a little bit based off of the client, but this is that testing, optimization, scaling framework when it comes to these creatives and copy that we're using every single week for every single client. And our goal is usually to test about 10 to 20 of these different creatives every single week when possible. Now, of course, step 3, back to the budget split, which is a big issue for a lot of people right now. Obviously, most of your budget should go to finding new customers. This is a bit different than what I would have told you 10 years ago. So we used to recommend 60-40. Now we've inched a little bit higher. We are recommending and baseline using about 80% of our budget top of funnel to new people who have never heard of us before, excluding people that have engaged with our brand. 20% of it goes bottom of funnel. The only reason this would start to change, there's a few of them, but the main reason would be brands that have a lot of organic site traffic. So like you have brands that have really built themselves on organic social or organic SEO, or maybe they're, on TV, or they have a famous founder and they're just getting a flood of organic traffic. When that's the case, you might start to see a different budget split here because you have so many free people in that retargeting audience. That audience is so big that you need to spend more to reach them. But nowadays, especially with the new meta campaign types, it's about 80 to 20%. And shout out to Diliana, our manager of advertising. She said, a lot of brands don't know their numbers, which is true. You can't scale if you don't. You might be sitting on a gold mine and not even know it. And again, back to Pretty Farm Girl, they were not spending 80% of their budget on new customers and they had no idea. So it was just a regurgitation, all of these people in the same ecosystem that wasn't growing the business as quickly as you could, and definitely wasting money. Step 4, test every week. We already talked about that. So you're testing new creatives, you're moving them into scaling campaigns, you're giving them more budget, and then you are setting your success metrics on back-end data, not just what Facebook shows you. I think most of you know this nowadays. We do make some decisions based off of what we see inside of Facebook, but those are usually secondary metrics, not our main success metric that tells us exactly what we're going to do. So here are a few ways that we fight creative fatigue that could be really easy iterations for you guys. So back to the testing, optimization, scaling part that I was telling you about. These are our SOPs right now for how we're doing this. So when we're trying to fight creative fatigue and we're not creating entirely new concepts, okay? We are trying to create iterations of what has already worked. I have easiest, medium, and advanced. So first we start with the easiest. We already talked about this. How can you just change the format? How can you change something that's working in one format, putting it in another format so that you can take advantage of that full real estate that Meta has available? That's easy. The second is context changes. So these are things like, okay, this creative is working in a studio setting. Well, what is this creative really saying? How could we show this in more of a lifestyle setting? How can we maintain the same hook, the same message of what we're doing, but instead of having it in a studio shot, let's have it in a lifestyle shot. And the reason we're thinking about this, guys, is again, it's less risky because we know that the overall concept, the hook, works. But we also understand that our audience is like a pond of fish. And some of you might be more likely to engage with a studio, very professional shot. Some of you might be more likely to engage with a random video of Molly, in my car or looking like a real person. So this is also starting to help us scale to all of the fish in that pond. Maybe it's a day scene and we're going to a night scene. Maybe it's indoor, maybe it's outdoor. Maybe it's this certain breed of dog and we keep the hook the same, but we change the breed of dog. Maybe we're speaking to something seasonal or a relevance of what's going on in their life. And now we're updating that to be about whatever this current season is. So the next step from the easy format changes is still, how do we maintain what we're trying to say, but how do we change the context? And then of course you have the perspective changes. And this is where you would need new footage. This is where you start to get into more of new creative concepts. So maybe a customer point of view on the product, a customer story is working really well. Okay, we know a story works. How can we flip that? How could we have someone on your team tell the story? How could we have maybe you as the founder tell the story of why someone should use your product? Every problem has a solution. So maybe there is an ad that's really hitting on the problem and that's working. Okay, could we use that same style, but lean more into the solution to that particular problem? Could we go from showing an individual person to a group, to your team, to your customers, right? Instead of speaking to the present state of where they are, could we flip that concept and start to speak to the future? There's so many ways to do this, guys. These are just 4 examples for each. But when you're starting to think about creative fatigue and, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just stuck in the mud creating all these new concepts, doesn't have to be that hard. It can be as simple as what's worked, let's change the formats, then let's change the context, then let's change the perspective. And you never left too far from that initial hook, that initial psychology of why someone is buying. And then, of course, step 5, this is the easy part, right? We know what works. Now we get to start spending more, right? We get to start giving it more money, and don't stop there, right? Keep iterating, keep evolving. This is where we see a lot of people get stuck. They're like, okay, I've got these scaling campaigns, I'm scaling them. Now I'm going to go ignore this for a month. Then you hit creative fatigue because you don't have the backlog of the currency that the platform needs, and you get stuck. And now you have a month of just a downward trend, when if you would have been, in a true cycle of this, you always have a new batch of creatives to iterate that's going to help you get through that next wall of creative fatigue. And here are our current SOPs. This is literally from a call that we had with our media buyers last week. Again, there's slight variations of this depending on the client, but right now, in general, this is the criteria that we use. A lot of you ask these questions, so that's why we're sharing it. So we scale when CPA is 50% below target for 7 days. That's a sweet spot. So your CPA goal, right? This campaign or this ad set or this ad is 50% below target for 7 days. That shows you that there is breathing room where you can increase the budget, you can spend more and still stay below that CPA target. We scale by 20% every 3 days. This has always been the case since I started running meta ads in 2012. A lot of people are like, Molly, I doubled my budget and the CPA skyrocketed. And it's like, unfortunately, these platforms just don't work that way. So right now we're scaling 20% every 3 days, which is very different from what we used to do. We're always watching the frequency. A lot of you guys ask what frequency is too high, what frequency is too low. This does depend on the client, but if we're seeing more than a 2 frequency for that week, we might start to think about pausing, or we might start to think about throttling and not scaling that particular campaign because we don't want to wear out the audiences from our audience testing campaign. And then, as I said earlier, have new variants ready before you try to go into another big moment of scale so that you actually have the assets that you need to give Meta what they need to do their job. So these are baseline, our current criteria. Again, every client has little nuances where this might be different, but e-com, non-e-com, these are our scaling criterias right now. So again, analyze what is working. Most people don't do this to the extent that they need. Build your testing engine, and remember that testing isn't just creative, it's also audiences. Really, really keep in mind, especially with the CBO Advantage Plus campaigns, how you are splitting your budget between top of funnel and retargeting. Probably allocate more to top of funnel than you would have 5 years ago. We are testing new iterations every single week, at least 15 to 20 new creatives when possible. And then the easy part, spending more on the winners, which I just gave you the criteria for that.